And Mayor, this is Carissa Bullock from Cornhusker Bank.
Yes.
Good to see you.
Thank you for coming
Yes,
over
thank
and
you.
everything. So, all right, it's fun to take a little time out this morning to talk about the things that we celebrate a little bit here in the city. I think most of you know that Lincoln is the biggest city in the whole world. It's named after Abraham Lincoln, and back in 2001, it was former Mayor Don Wesley, I think, who started this celebration. So now it's become an annual thing. And today I'm pleased to announce that the 16th annual celebration in February will return with the great musical Civil War Voices, written by local attorney and playwright Jim Harris. Welcome back, Jim.
Thank you, Mayor.
The musical was first presented in Lincoln, I think, as part of the Abe Lincoln celebration back in 2009. Is that
There was
good information?
There was first a workshop at Doane College in 2008, and then at the Lead Center as part of the city's celebration in 2009.
Sold out, as I remember,
There were a
at
lot
the
of
Lead
folks there.
Center.
It was a
Right?
snowy
Yeah.
night.
To give you a little more background, this play and its different iterations has been presented in 14 states now and has been through two major revisions. In 2010, Civil War Voices won 6 awards, including Best Production of a Musical at a New York theater festival. A year later, a Tony award-winning Virginia Theater took the musical on the 26-city national tour. After 7 years of performances in the East and in the South of our country, it's exciting to bring back this newest version of the outstanding homegrown musical back to Lincoln. It's important, obviously, that we keep history alive, and specifically that we keep Civil War history alive and make sure the new generations understand the lessons of that critical time in our nation's history. Jim has written this musical using the actual words of real people who lived through the Civil War era, and people of all ages can identify with their stories. The musical features all new arrangements of traditional songs by noted composer Mark Hayes, I understand. Okay. 8 performances are scheduled from February 11th through the 21st at the Haymarket Theater. Jen Luke, Jen, how are you, is with us today from the theater. Want to thank her and her staff and her board for opening their doors for this production. Tickets are available, as I understand it, at haymarkettheater.org,
Yep, correct.
and they're very affordable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll find a link on the city website, also at lincoln.ne.gov. The presenting sponsor of the musical is Cornhusker Bank this year. A number of businesses, organizations, and individuals have been lending outstanding support to this whole effort, but especially Cornhusker Bank. John and Susan Dittman have been longtime supporters of the celebration, and Clarissa Bullock from Cornhusker, who is Cornhusker Bank's Vice President of Marketing.
Yep.
Okay, is here today, and we do indeed thank her and the bank for their ongoing support in this celebration. The production is also supported by the Nebraska Arts Council and the Nebraska Cultural Endowment. At opening night, Thursday, February 11th, we are inviting everyone to celebrate President Lincoln's birthday with a pre-show party at the Haymarket. You can stop by anytime from 5:30 to 7 that evening for a free birthday cake. Did the president like chocolate cake?
He liked his gingerbread.
Gingerbread.
Yes.
Is that what we're having?
We'll probably have spice cake again.
Spice cake.
It's close.
Close enough. All right. There'll also be live music from Chris Sayer and historical exhibits. You don't need a ticket to attend the party, but of course you would need a ticket to attend the 7:30 performance following that night. So Jim has focused his musical on the writings of 5 individuals. One was his great-great-uncle, Joe Harris, from Alabama, who kept a diary during the Civil War. And Jim will again portray his ancestor in this production, as I understand it. And we'd like him to tell us more about the people whose stories are being told in this production. Jim?
Thank you very much, Mayor. I want to express my sincere gratitude to the mayor, to the Abe Lincoln Birthday Committee, especially Diane Gonzalez and Wayne Bowles, but everybody involved has been very supportive. I'd like to note that because of the Lead Center show in 2009, I had something that I could send to a friend of my composer and collaborator in New York named Laura Berquist. And Laura has recently been the music director for Allegiance on Broadway, and very, very well connected and nice person who's become a very good friend of mine. And she looked at the Lead Center tape, and she said, you know, this musical may have some potential. I think we should do an industry reading and a festival. And I said, well, that sounds really great. What's an industry reading and a festival? I had no idea, but those 2 steps were very beneficial to the show, and of course the Lead Center show was very beneficial in terms of getting into those venues. So thanks again to the city, of course, to Pinnacle Bank. That's a very, very generous gift. And excuse, what did I say? I am so sorry. Cornhusker Bank. Cornhusker has been very, very, I'm working on Pinnacle for another donation, is what I thought of that. But Cornhusker Bank has been very, very generous, and that's a big step in terms of being able to do the production, so thanks to Cornhusker. The story of the structure of the show is really fairly straightforward. We've just tried to present the thoughts and feelings of 5 individuals who actually lived through the period, and the most intriguing character to me is a lady by the name of Elizabeth Keckley. I found her story in a New York museum shop. A little book was sitting in a dusty corner. I picked it up and looked at the back cover and couldn't believe that it was true. But this was a lady who was born a slave in Virginia, bought her freedom, became a noted dressmaker in St. Louis, moved to Washington, D.C., and became the best friend and dressmaker for Mary Todd Lincoln in the White House. And her journey is just so compelling and so amazing that that to me is one of the most amazing stories that hasn't been heard in America. She will be portrayed by Camille Matoyer Moten, who is one of the most talented ladies in the state, and she's been in this show, I think, 5 times now.
She was in 2009.
She was in the Lead Center show in 2009. Zach Kloppenberg is here. He's got a great story. Zach is going to be portraying a Confederate soldier by the name of Theo Perry, who was separated from his beloved wife and family. And Zach's story is this. In 2008, when we did this workshop in Doane College, just to kind of run it up the flag and see if anybody saluted, so to speak, Zach was the original Theo Perry, and here he is back again all these years later to reprise his role. So and you've done the show once since then in Ohio, right? Any other times you've been in it?
Then I also did the Omaha Omaha Community Playhouse.
Oh yeah, the Omaha Community Playhouse did a reading of the show in September, and Zach played Theo. So the very first person to say the words "Dear Harriet" was Zach, and so we're just really glad to have him back. Zach, do you want to say anything?
Okay, I'll go up. I don't really have anything prepared to say, but it is really an honor and a privilege to get to play this role for the fourth time. It's been wonderful to grow with this just amazing human interest story. And what I really love about the show, besides Jim's passion for the Civil War, as well as our director Rob's passion for the history of the Civil War, is that it's not just about the history of our nation kind of growing through this period of turmoil. It's a story about individual people, and it's that really personal level of communication that the story brings that I love. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Zach. Well done. There's another character in the show named, and is probably the best known character, is Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. He was a college professor in Maine, volunteered for service. The governor of Maine heard that he was this academic who was a man of books and didn't believe he was going to be up to the task. And of course, he was the commander of the Union forces in one of the most pivotal stages of the Gettysburg battle. And his story is compelling as well. So we've tried to make it a personalized story, or as somebody in the Barter Theater once wrote, telling the story of the war from the inside out. You look at these 5 individuals and their lives and the people they touched, and then hopefully you'll get a better understanding of what the country went through and where we are today. So I'd like to also thank Rob McKercher, who is the director of the show from Doane College. He's been involved with this show from the very, very beginning. Thrilled to have him back as the director. And again, thanks to Cornhusker Bank for their wonderful support of the show that has made it possible. And with that, take any questions you have. Or
The mayor's got a few introductions.
okay. All right. Thank you again.
All right. Right here in Lincoln, Nebraska. Great stuff. The last set of thank yous I wanted to make was simply to the Abe Lincoln Celebration Committee itself, including several individuals who have spent a great deal of time over the years making this happen. I think Terry Lowe's here today. Welcome, Terry. And Gene Crump, thank you. And our own Diane Gonzalez has been a regular part of that committee from the beginning. Is Tracy Simpson here today? Tracy, there you are, yeah.
And Mary Yeager from Humanities Nebraska snuck in at the last minute.
Ah, okay, welcome. So with that, I think we take questions.
Jim, go on back up there.
Probably Jim's the one you want to talk to, but
Well, a little bit more, Jim, how did you get the idea to do this originally? What sparked this? Was it your great relative?
It was, and I was riding along on a family business trip to Savannah, and I couldn't get the music of the Civil War out of my mind as I was riding along essentially the path that General Sherman took from Atlanta to Savannah. And the idea just struck me that if you could find compelling stories of the war, and then a key thing was getting a great composer to work with me to reimagine those songs, and I knew exactly 0 great composers at that time, that it could be a compelling musical. And my brother, Bert, cornered me a few years later because the idea just sat there for a while, and he said, we need to do a memorial to my father, who had just passed away a couple of years before that, and he said, if you write this musical, that would be a great memorial and would be a fundraiser for a museum that my dad had founded. So that was the impetus for it, and a big turning point in the show was convincing Mark Hayes of Kansas City to be my collaborator. Mark's internationally known, and why in the world he agreed to work with me as a first-time author, I don't know, but he did, and so that's how it all came about. And it was just a matter of finding other compelling stories of the war, and so I got lucky, very lucky on a couple of occasions. One was finding that Elizabeth Keckley story by chance, and just saw it laying down there in the corner of a bookstore. And then I did a Google search, something like Civil War letters, romance, soldiers writing letters to each other, just a general search, and I came up with this Theo and Harriet Parody story too. So.
And Abe Lincoln is in it.
Abe does make a guest appearance, as does Mary Todd. They're not major characters, but they're important characters. And Elizabeth Keckley was very close to them, and so you see them through her eyes. It's Elizabeth's story, but you see them through her eyes, yes.
Could you talk more about why it was important for you to tell this story?
Well, the Civil War is kind of the defining point of our history. There are so many issues that we're still dealing with today from the Civil War. And it kind of evokes a visceral passion in us as Americans, doesn't it? I think one great writer observed that it's our only felt history. It's the only history that we still feel viscerally as Americans, because it involved, I have ancestors for both sides of the war. A lot of people do. The African American experience is so keenly tied into the Civil War. And so I felt that if you could harness that passion in some way, that it could be a meaningful musical, and that's what inspired me to do it.
Okay,
Question?
you all set to go?
Okay. All right.
Thank you again.
All right. Thank you.
Jim, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Megan. Appreciate it.
We'll see you there, I assume.
Okay. Well, I hope so.
Gene, good to see you.